Hey, Joe, what do you got for us tonight?
Well, tonight is the 11th part in our series on Jim Jones and the People's Temple. We will cover Jim's harsh reign over Jonestown, the difficult assimilation of the wave of new settlers, his custody battle with Grace Stoen, and the ever-growing group back in America calling for an investigation into Jim's alleged abuse and human rights violations.
Quiet your mind. Ever since the earth has circled the sun, there have been fantastic tales of wonder and mystery that the faint of heart dare not discuss. But 3 brave, uninformed souls have the brass to tackle every extraordinary happenstance, from the modern age to the dawn of Mantis.
Welcome to Dawn of Mantis, True Crime, Mysteries, and More. I'm Ivan with Joe and Sam. Anything you guys got to talk about today before this thing starts?
No.
Part number, what number are we on this Jim Jones
Number
stuff?
11 of 14. We've got 14 in the series. I can say that now.
That's cool. That's
There's
good
an
to
end
know.
in sight.
Yeah, the light at the end of the tunnel. I knew it had to be being wrapped up pretty soon because we're in South America now.
Yes.
Basically, right?
Yeah, we're in Guyana now.
We're still in Arkansas, but
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Before we get started, I want to spend about 15 minutes talking about politics and religion, okay?
Okay.
No, of course I don't want to talk about that shit. I want to talk about Jim Jones.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's talk about
There's so much.
nothing that's related to politics or religion. Let's talk about Jim Jones.
Sure. Damn, politics and religion.
That's true.
I see what you did there.
Let's go for it.
All right. So it is now August of 1977 in our story, and Jim Jones has just arrived in Jonestown to reside permanently. The settlers who'd already been there working and preparing for the last few years were about to experience a sudden and dramatic shift in the vibe.
Okay.
No shit, right?
Yep. Just shift.
Big Daddy's home.
Only shift, no shit.
From the moment Jim arrived to the complete collapse and mass suicide of Jonestown was only 15 months.
Hey, no spoilers.
Oh, sorry. All right. That sounds like a short amount of time, but that, given time, Jim was really off his nut by this time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you think, we'll talk about the end for just a minute. I
Yeah.
got a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that he knows this is going to happen?
I kind of do, yeah.
Okay.
It's in the back of his mind,
Okay.
given what I know.
Do you think it's more of a like, it's going to happen, or if it doesn't go the way I want it to go, it'll happen?
Yeah, I can say that this was a contingency plan in the back of Jim's brain for a couple of years.
It's like the most elaborate tantrum you could ever throw.
Yeah. I do think that Jim, by this point, knew this was going to happen. He just didn't know if it was going to be within 6 months, 4 years, 5 years, 24 months. I don't know. He just knew it was there.
You got to think his ultimate goal is not to have a church in the jungle. It probably wasn't his ultimate.
Oh, we'll go over the conditions and,
Sure.
It's not ideal.
is this what Guns N' Roses wrote that song about?
I can't even remember any more of the lyrics.
Welcome to the jungle. We've got Flavor Aid.
I forgot it said that.
That's terrible. Anyway, as crazy as Jim was, it's crazy that it lasted 15 months.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he would have had everybody kill themselves in 15 days. The state that he was in.
Yeah.
The serene, quiet, difficult, but stress-free existence the settlers had been enjoying immediately stopped when Father Jim showed up. Sleep-deprived, paranoid, and butthurt over the recently released article back in San Francisco, Jim had landed in Guyana even more angry and controlling than usual, ready to assert his dominance and remind everyone that he was in charge.
Yeah.
He wasted no time in calling a meeting. Jim liked to hold a meeting. He held lots of them where he just ranted and screamed at everybody forever. But anyway, this was the first of many, so he was announcing some new rules. Many of these were existing rules back in California, like no one could date or begin a new relationship without his approval.
Sure.
No couple could break up without his approval.
Okay.
Every waking moment in Jonestown would be spent working to support Jonestown. All incoming and outgoing mail would be inspected and confiscated if necessary.
Sure.
Like you do.
Yeah, like you do.
Any outgoing mail that contained any negative words about Jonestown would be thrown away. Only positive accounts would be allowed out of the camp.
So did he have a team of people going through that mail, or he was just going through all of it himself?
He had a team of people.
Wow.
It's funny you say that because two of Jim's mistresses, Carolyn Layton and Maria Katsaris, they were the two that were in charge of examining the mail.
Mail fraud.
Mail fraud, yeah. Nightly meetings, which consisted of Jim ranting and raving for hours on end, began right away.
So I guess he knew that since he was sleeping with them on the side, he could trust them.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're
That
right.
makes you trustable.
Sure. Well, she lets me put my wiener inside her. Therefore, she must be completely trustworthy.
She's been vetted.
And bedded. Ow! Ow!
There you go. That sounded like, what's his name?
Dice Clay?
Yeah, Dice Clay.
Yeah. Jim at these meetings rarely preached, though. Instead, he'd report the horrific conditions unfolding back in the States. According to him, everything was always about to go to shit in the States, World War III or a nuclear disaster, whatever.
Meanwhile, most of us have malaria, but the States is all screwed.
Way worse down there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all of us have swamp ass. We've been wiping with jungle leaves. There's not a clean butt in Jonestown, but the U.S. is way worse.
They needed a Lux bidet.
They did. They did.
They needed a bunch of
Just
them.
pull some water straight from the Amazon. That ought to be good.
Jim told his terrified followers that KKK membership had skyrocketed and that military leaders in Washington, D.C. were drawing up plans to begin killing black people. So now's a good time to play a clip of just how crazy old JJ was at this time. This is a random but typical clip from one of his meetings in Jonestown.
I'd like to say to you, if you've caused me any difficulty at all, you'd better talk more and you better stay away from other people that have caused trouble. And you better get yourself up here in the front lines so I can watch you. And you better not object to that, because some of you motherfuckers nearly destroyed this organization. You nearly caused 1,000 deaths. And so, goddamn it, you deserve to let your life be tested. I didn't need mine tested. I've had all kinds of tests, and each of you compound me my test over and over again by your own bullshit. Don't be hiding behind no poles. Better get your face out in the open, because I'm watching you, because some of you fuckers tried to kill me. I mean, literally. I know when you did it. I know when you tried to kill me, fucker. You know who I'm talking to. I know when you tried to do it. I'm aware of you fuckers. Anybody else that cut your throat. Instead of watch you, they cut your throat. So I'm going to take a healthy look, but quit underestimating me. You may not believe in anything, but one goddamn thing you want to believe in, that this mind is more prepared to know what the hell's going on than anybody. Because he doesn't trust anybody. I don't trust one motherfucker. All the fucking time. Don't work there, never seen her. Where's one lady? She's sick. She's sick. She's sick. Because she got education, she can afford to be sick. Some of these other poor people who never been able to read or write, they never get sick. She got a little education. She thinks she's a little more important than somebody else, so she can get sick every time she wants to get sick. Fuck you, elitist. God damn you, I never allow myself to get sick. If I'm pitching vomit or it's coming out both ends, I get to where I'm supposed to be. I work all night. Everybody down there can tell you. They can hear me roaming around. They can see my lights reading. Look in the goddamn window, which they do many times, so you can see what's going on. So I don't mind that saying. I'm going to tell you. I keep my schedule, fucker. I don't change my schedule for nobody, fucker. And some of you who think you are so special, goddamn you, that you can stay out of meetings and do whatever the hell you want to and not show up to work, you're always sick. You're sick. I'll tell you what your sickness is. You're a prejudiced bastard that think you're better than somebody else. Shit. You're a crock of shit like everybody else. Nothing but a zero, but some of you never will know it, because I don't know how in the hell you think you're so fucking pretty. Some of you try treason on the strangest people. God damn, you don't know. You're so fucking ugly, some of you. I don't know. You're uglier than I am, and you try treason. Think that you're going to get by with it. Think I'm not on to your number. Hell's fire. You don't know who you're fucking with. They say something to you to get you to say something. You don't know what they're up to. They're baiting you, fucker. Dumb fucker, stupid fucker. I've told them to go over there and talk to you, stupid fucker. And some of you are so narcissistic, you fall right into the path. you open up your mouth and sing like a magpie. And I got what I already expected. I thought you was a traitor, and I still think you're a traitor, and you'll always be a traitor until I see you change, you motherfucker.
So I just had a thought listening to all that. Some of these people, at least a decent amount, had to commit suicide just because they got all the way down there and they just realized how crazy this guy was and how they were fooled. So they were probably fine with just offing themselves. You know what I mean? It's like I wasted so much of my life. And it sounds like this guy just went off the deep end. I mean, he was already there, but you know what I mean? It's like there had to be at a certain amount. It's like, okay, you know?
No, you're
like
right.
If I'm dumb enough to listen to this guy for years.
Yeah, I think there was a certain amount of people that were just like, yeah, I may as well.
Yeah, I know. I hate to say that. I mean,
at.
I don't condone that choice really, but you know, I just feel bad for these people because another thought I had during this is these people cheering, like some of it just has to be so they don't get his negative attention. Like if they're cheering there with him and he won't call them out for something. I don't know. I just feel so bad for these people.
Yeah, there was a mixture of all kinds. You know, there were the people that were like, God damn, what have we done? Then there were the people that were going along to get along because they knew there was no out. Unfortunately, there was still a fair amount of people that were all in still, though. Like, you know, Jim could have said anything. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, hell yeah. Like in the background, you'd hear him just going along with anything he said. So there was a mixture of all kinds there, man.
Well, from doing our other cult things, one thing that always happens is they talk about your old life, how bad your old life was and how you were nothing and now you're something.
Yeah.
So I can hear a lot of people in that crowd, they really feel like they think they're a part of something special and they actually have found their purpose.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that keeps them there. So they're not, you know, if they leave, they're a nobody. And well, if they leave by this point, they might get something really bad.
Yeah, then it's bad. Like the Gang of Eight, like we went over how hard it was to leave Jim.
Sure. Yeah. You don't mess around with Jim.
You don't. You know, Jim Croce said it best.
That's probably what he's singing about.
Yeah.
No, it was earlier. But anyway.
Well, as far as punishments went, it seems Jim had been kind of scared away from physical violence by the New West article back in San Francisco. You know, they outed a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
But once in Jonestown, punishment seemed to be more psychological. So Jim established the Learning Crew.
Okay.
That sounds positive. What's that?
Sounds like a PBS show for kids. Hey guys, we're the Learning Crew.
Coming on right after Ghost Rider.
That's right.
Ghost Rider. It was an exiled group of followers who had displeased Jim in some way. They were bunked separately from the rest of Jonestown, forced to perform hard labor, and completely ignored by the rest of the group.
Okay.
The Learning Crew.
Wow.
You'll learn.
Yeah, we're learning. Wow.
No one was even allowed to look at them.
Oh.
So it was like scarlet letter times.
Whoa.
Yeah. Other times, Jim would make the person stand in front of the entire Jonestown crowd while he yelled at them and berated them, sometimes for hours. And this is on tape as well. You can find it on YouTube.
You said the Learning Crew?
Learning Crew. Yeah.
I feel like how Ivan said it would be better. The learned.
Oh, well, no, I didn't say it like that, but the learned.
The learned
Would learned be after you've learned something. So maybe afterwards you could call them that.
Well,
we're learned now. We've done all the hard chores.
Where does learned come in? Like they done learned.
that's just, that's here.
They're in the wrong South. For that.
Okay. The Learned Crew.
I learned my times table a long time ago. Ask me one. The fives and down, though.
The fives
Ask me fives or tens. I know them. Not nines and sevens. I'm not learned.
Ain't learned them yet. Yeah, learned. Learnt. That's a word. Where's that come in? There was also a coffin-sized box that one would be placed inside for long periods of time.
Wow.
While Jim threatened to throw a snake inside as well. The old practice of everyone looking over their shoulder for fear of a spy or a narc was back. The carefree era of Jonestown was officially over.
Yeah, the era with no Jim.
Yeah. Jim continued his downward spiral, although there were occasional reprieves from his insanity. Sometimes he'd walk on. I'm going to try to lighten things up for just a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Sometimes he'd walk down to the fields and let everyone take a break, and they'd have a water fight.
Oh, okay.
Really?
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he did. There was times where he was like normal. Did I mention he had a pet monkey?
It seems like you did.
I mean, he used to sell them.
Well, he's got a pet monkey named Mr. Muggs.
Okay.
I'm not joking.
Okay.
He would take Mr. Muggs down to the daycare center and let the kids play with him. He'd visit the senior center and comfort the many elderly and bedridden followers. That's the old folks whose Social Security checks he'd been stealing.
Was he nice to those people?
He was nice to them, yeah.
Because they didn't obviously go to the meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
So they probably saw him a whole different way.
They may have.
Like it's the guy with the monkey.
Jim's the greatest guy ever. Meanwhile, he's up at the meetings just like, I don't trust you, fucker. Right. I don't know. I don't know if they wheeled the old people out for the meetings. I don't think they did. And also, the kids, I don't think were there. I don't know.
Not.
I doubt it.
But I'm sure 13 and 14-year-olds were probably, they probably went.
You're like, man.
Yeah.
Father Jim is not what I thought. No, they knew, but I think everyone knew by then.
But I mean, they grew up in it. So they probably just
normal.
thought, they probably thought he was a super awesome dude.
Well, you'd think Jim would have finally been satisfied, right? He basically had what he always wanted. He had this isolated group of fanatically loyal followers whom he could loom over like a god with virtually no consequences.
Sure.
He had a harem of women he could sexually rule over.
Sure.
And thanks to Jonestown physician Larry Schecht, I don't know that last name. It's a stupid-ass last name. I apologize to anyone with that last name.
It's one of our, what if we have a listener who's listen to every episode?
We don't.
Mike Schecht.
We don't.
And he's like, I hate Donna Mantis now.
Larry Schecht was the last Schecht ever.
Okay, go ahead. Continue on.
Thanks to this guy, we'll just call him Dr. Larry.
Okay, that'll work.
Because I can't say his last name.
That'll work.
Jim had an endless supply of drugs.
Okay.
So while his followers were crammed into rickety cottages and wiping with jungle leaves, Jim was in a fully furnished cabin with its own generator, a fridge stocked with sodas, a private bathroom, and a harem of girls who would scob his knob whenever he asked. He was joined there by his mistresses, Carolyn and Maria, as well as his son Chemo and the Stones' son, John Victor. Jim had everything he wanted, but guess what? He still wasn't happy. And those rare stints of humanity that I just described earlier, they were always short-lived. And soon the paranoid, angry, bitter Father Jim was back.
What do you get for the cult leader that has everything for his birthday? That's probably where he got that monkey.
Really? Why wasn't he happy? Why wasn't right then? Why wasn't he like, man, you know what?
Well, I think he might have been insane.
I know.
To answer your question, I'm going out on a limb here.
You're like, just rewind the podcast a few minutes and listen to that clip. What do you think, buddy?
I don't think you could give the guy anything and make him happy.
No, I don't think so either. Therein lies the problem.
That's right.
So life became much harder for the settlers. They tried to warn Jim that the current facilities in Jonestown would only accommodate about 200 people at the most. Now, remember, they were supposed to have about another year and a half or two to prepare for the exodus of people there. Jim had really ramped that up. He ignored their concerns and demanded as many followers as possible be immediately brought in from the U.S. to Jonestown. As new followers poured in, the settlers' concerns were validated. The few cottages that were ready and fully built, they would only accommodate about 4 to 6 people. So now with hundreds arriving, the cottages were crammed with over a dozen people each.
Yeah.
But even this didn't faze Jim, he just said, you know what, build more damn cottages then if there's not enough.
Yeah.
And the settlers, we'll just pull more out of our ass, Father Jim, no problem. You psycho son of a bitch. We'll just build more with the materials we don't have.
That's what they were thinking, but they didn't say it.
They did not say it. But the housing wasn't even the only issue, not by a long shot. There weren't enough communal toilets or showers for everyone.
I was going to say that is the main downfall of most civilizations anyway.
Pooping.
If you look, sanitation and stuff like that.
You know what that reminded me of, and I will tell this story on the podcast because I don't care. The other night, I ate some Mexican food that did not agree with my lower intestines, right?
Okay.
And so I'm out working on my car, and you know when it happens, the gurgle down below the belt buckle, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
You know.
It's like a sinking feeling.
Yeah, so I run through the house, run down the hallway. We only have one bathroom in this house we're in right now.
Okay.
And my 7-year-old daughter was in there in the bathtub just playing. And I'm like, I'm not going to just sit down and spray out right by her. That never in a million years, that would traumatize her, right?
So what'd you do?
I don't know. It's Grace one. She might be all right.
I got to know what your brain thought of. Like, did you have a MacGyver moment where you're like, well, I got to do something?
It was dark.
Yeah.
Although I do have a pretty bright yard light in my backyard. Anyway, I keep my old truck, that old brown Chevy.
Yeah.
I keep it parked in the backyard.
Is it more brown now?
Does this involve the tailgate?
Sam knows where I'm going. I ran outside, ran through into the backyard, and just dropped trowel and leaned against that brown truck and just painted the grass. Yeah, you have no choice. The thing is, it's coming out in 30 seconds. Where am I going to be?
There's been so much rain. This truck is
the paint's running off.
The paint's washing off.
But yeah, like I said, your body's like, this is evacuating in 30 seconds. Where are you going to be? That's up to you, but it's coming.
Yeah.
Where you're at is up to you. So I just did the best I could with a bad situation.
You have to.
On my way, as I was running out, I reached out and I grabbed the roll of paper towels, like off the kitchen thing.
Okay.
Because I knew,
Yeah.
I grabbed it. My wife didn't even, she doesn't care. She's like, whatever. I'm so goddamn weird. She doesn't even ask anymore. So she didn't even ask. So I ran out and I just come back in all sweaty and I put the paper towels back on. I'm washing my hands and I'm like, do you want to know what just happened? And she was like, I literally do not want to know.
I don't want to know.
And I didn't tell her.
I
for
saw
a few
you
days.
run out with paper towels.
A few days later, I did tell her.
It does remind me that a comedian one time made a good point about paper towels and toilet paper. Toilet paper is that big.
Yeah.
It's for your butt.
Yeah.
Paper towels are that big and they're for your hands. It's a great point.
Yeah.
Because you do have to like roll it around your hand. Unless you have a bidet.
Right.
And even then, you got to dry up a little bit. There is toilet paper still used.
I do have a roll, but it lasts forever.
Yeah. You just got to dab. Just got to dab it.
Little dab will do you.
So anyway, I just shared that with thousands of people. But hey, I'm not the only person that's happened to, I bet.
No, probably not. I pooped outside, but I can't remember the last time.
You ain't lived until you've pooped outside. I'll just say that.
You did solve the major problem, the
What?
hovering issue.
Yeah.
Because I don't do yoga or anything, so you can't just like hold that position forever.
No, you lean up against something.
Yeah.
A tree,
But
a
I
truck.
wouldn't have thought about that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
And that was on the fly. Yeah.
That'll help somebody.
Lean against the truck.
That's right.
Truck's already brown, so if there's any splashback, you can't even tell.
It's better if it's somebody else's truck.
Somebody.
Way better.
Like if you're in a bar and it just hits, just run out and lean against a random
Yeah.
truck.
Who knew white vehicles don't show as much usually? Well, it probably would in this case.
Definitely would.
Brown truck. There you go.
Anyway, yeah, Sam hit it right. Did you make it more brown? Anyway, so that happened. You can't help it. So here's the deal. There weren't enough communal toilets or showers
Sure.
for everyone. The new residents were restricted to 1 2-minute shower per day.
Wow. And they're in the jungle.
Yeah, so they were urged to keep their eyes and mouths closed to keep out the polluted jungle water. Because this ain't like filtered, you know what I mean? This is just shit that's whatever's coming off the hill.
Yeah.
We're pumping onto you. So speaking of toilets,
Yeah.
toilet paper soon became as valuable as cash money.
Okay.
The meager supply kept on hand was used up almost immediately, and people had to resort to using literal paper, like pieces of paper. Ow!
I just think of like in jail how they play cards with cigarettes as their chips. So like, I'll raise you one roll.
1 roll of Charmin.
I'm going all in.
That's a rich bet, brother.
Somebody count those squares, make sure they're all there.
I bet you 6 squares of Charmin you can't. Yeah, it's that little.
Oh, you could rip it up. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
Use them
man.
as like dollar bills.
By the square. They're like licking their thumb and peeling off squares of toilet paper.
We should have a toilet paper poker tournament.
Toilet paper poker.
There we go.
Say that 3 times fast.
We'll have it at fart night.
Can you imagine? But so after the TP ran out, they were using, like I said, pieces. Hear that?
Pieces of paper?
Pieces of paper.
Yeah.
I think we should dwell on that for you. You know how much that would hurt?
Well, you
wad them up.
you wad it into a ball and like do that a whole bunch of times, and it kind of feels like toilet paper.
Okay,
after a
if you
while.
do it a bunch of times.
Yeah, it takes a bunch. But I guess you could be sitting there like as you're.
Dude, have you ever had a paper cut on your beehole?
No, I can't say
Neither
that
have I. Neither have I, for the record. I just want to
couldn't
say.
have guessed that I would be asked that question tonight. I wasn't prepared for that question, but the answer is no.
Who would be? Only on Dawn
Joe
of Man.
only asks the hard-hitting questions.
You couldn't guess that you'd not only be asked that question tonight,
That's true.
but ever in your life.
That's right. You're right. Yeah, never. No, I never have. And never will.
Neither have I, just for the record.
Thanks, Lux.
Yeah. You ever try to put a Band-Aid on your brown eye?
If we get our ad campaign, that'll be one of it. Paper cut butt. You don't want to go there.
So, yeah, they went from TP to paper. And when the paper ran out, they were literally going out and just pulling jungle leaves.
I'd get those fuzzy ones. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh, man. You know, though, eventually they did figure out which was the better jungle leaf.
You know, I will tell you, I know a little bit about this.
Okay.
Leaves in areas that rain a lot or have that glossy look to them.
Yeah.
Think about like a southern magnolia tree.
You don't want that, right?
No, because I mean, that's not going to absorb anything.
No.
But if they're in the jungle, almost every leaf's going to be like that.
Dang.
I think.
I wonder what they used.
I don't even know. Somebody in the jungle, 4174-MANTIS. If you're listening in the jungle out there, we need to know.
What's the best leaf to wipe with?
We could ask Meta or AI sometime.
And even the people in just like North America, hey, hunters out there, you've been caught, with your pants down literally. What's the best leaf to wipe with? Maple, oak,
Again, with the hard-hitting questions.
Hard-hitting questions. Oh,
what's the best leaf?
I bet it would be a catalpa. That's a big old leaf.
That's true.
Not
But
glossy.
it seems rigid and it seems dangerous.
Maybe a little. What about a fern? Like wad up a fern. Just wad it up.
You need something that has good coverage.
Yeah.
Like that's big, but not sharp. Catalpa's sharp, dude. I don't think so.
You know what I'd do?
Go there.
I would just go to a free running stream and just splash off my butt.
There we go.
And then I would catch a squirrel or something and just dry off with him.
Nature's bidet.
That's right.
Squirrel. Man, it seems like a lot of bad things happen. Sharp teeth. You'd have to knock him out by hit him on the ground by his tail. Then when he wakes up,
poor guy, he's covered in shit, wakes up covered in shit. What happened to me?
What a bad night, man.
That's a bad night for a squirrel right there. He goes back to his friends. He's like, I just got knocked out of nowhere. I woke up covered in shit. It's like, it was a hell of a day, guys. I don't know what happened. That same thing happened to Carl the other night.
He's like a legend in his own little tree. Man, that guy parties hard.
He woke up covered in shit. It wasn't even his. That's the thing, guys.
Man, this is crazy. We're having so much fun, and these people are about to.
No, they're not going to die for 4 more episodes.
Okay.
We're
All
good.
right. We'll dial it back by then, hopefully.
So let's talk about the issue of food.
Let's do that.
The settlers had assumed they'd have a couple more planting seasons to finish fertilizing the puny jungle soil and get some crops growing. Remember I said...
Yeah, they didn't have enough whatever would make plants grow.
Right. And so the locals, the natives, had told them, you got to burn these trees, mix the potash, mix it up, and maybe in a few seasons you'll have something that resembles fertile soil. Well, that had been cut short also. So now there were hundreds of mouths to feed and nowhere near enough food. Literal truckloads had to be purchased weekly and brought in from Georgetown to feed the population, which quickly grew to over 900 people.
And that's not what he wants to do with the Social Security money.
No, not at all.
I want to buy food with it.
No, he just wanted to hoard it. We'll get into that.
That's true.
God, you guys are going to be so pissed off. Later on, after the massacre, when they delve into the temple's finances, I'll just say this. There was an obscene amount of money that Jim had stashed around in multiple, he had enough money stashed that these poor people in this jungle settlement, they could have been living like literal kings.
Wow.
They could have each had their own 2-story, fully furnished cottage with 3 lavish meals every day.
I believe it.
The fact that he was making these poor damn people wipe with leaves and take 2 minutes, there was so much damn money.
He probably had one of those cargo containers full of toilet paper too, didn't he?
You mean he was greedy?
Yes. He just hoarded it all and just, oh my God, we'll get to it. So a single meal of chicken and pork with a side for those 900 people cost about $2,000, okay? He made them eat this nasty slop that was like rice with little bits of like veggies and meat, just bits. It was mainly just a rice slop. That's what they, But anyway, on the weekends, the entire populace of Jonestown would form a line by Jim, and he would hand them out their one single cookie for the week.
Wow.
And you know what? They thanked him for it. Thanks, Father Jim, for this.
Probably wasn't
He
even
was
a
like
good cookie.
Oprah. And you get a cookie.
Here's
You
your
get a
cookie. Here's your cookie. Yeah.
It probably wasn't even an Oreo. It's probably some kind of Hydrox or something.
Yeah. I mean, this is the guy
Remember
that
those?
killed them with flavor. Well, Hydrox?
Yeah, I think that's what it was called. It was like a knockoff Oreo.
A Hydrox?
I think that's what it was called. Wasn't it?
No.
It was the original.
It was called Hydrox?
I think so. Yeah.
Why does it? That sounds like a cleaning agent or something.
It does.
Yeah.
Why would you name a cookie a Hydrox? We're looking it up as we speak. Magic Sam is on the
This may not even
tickling
make
the
Yeah,
keyboard.
it's Hydrox.
Yeah.
It popped right up.
Is it like HYDROX?
There you go.
Sweet, filling, crunchy. Damn, that's the
You know what?
original
I
Oreo.
was knocking it, but it's probably just the same.
It's surely the same thing. It just had a shitty name. Seriously, that's a terrible name. Hydrox.
Oreo was created in 1912. Says right there.
Wow.
Same year as the Titanic
This was
sunk.
in 1908.
So just 4 years later, we had Oreos. If suddenly having to build dozens of cabins and purchase thousands of pounds of food on a weekly basis sounds expensive, that's because, good job, folks, it was. Jim had always claimed, now I alluded to a while ago, I kind of shot my wad a little early, which never happens.
Don't do that.
Sorry. And I said that Jim had a lot of money. They found out after this all went to hell. So he had always claimed that there would be enough food produced from the settlement, like from what they had grown, enough to feed everybody, and then enough left over, enough surplus to sell and cover the rest of Jonestown's expenses. Boy, was he wrong. He was way off. The fields were yielding almost nothing. And the monthly bill to keep Jonestown up and running was an astonishing $600,000 a month.
Wow.
Per month. And that's in 1977. So that's the equivalent of $100 gazillion today. Literally 3 million, though, is to be honest. But
Okay.
But the People's Temple Ventures, still in operation back in the States, they were churning out money still,
Okay.
about $400,000 a month.
Okay.
Also, Jim had sold off his LA and San Francisco churches, which came to $1.2 million, which would be $6.5 million in today's money. Jonestown itself also generated money in various ways. About a third of Jonestown's residents were seniors, and I've already talked about this a little bit. They were collecting Social Security checks, $40,000 a month in Social Security checks is what Jim was leeching off them. Temple members also began making toys like carved wooden cars and trains, as well as dolls, which they would then sell in open-air markets and retail stores in Jonestown. Gee, that sounds a lot like capitalism, Jim!
It does.
Doesn't that remind you of selling goods and services?
Yeah. I mean, it really does.
It sounds a lot like capitalism, Jim.
Yeah. But it's driven by communism.
Oh, sure. So that makes sense. Makes no
Well,
sense.
It's actually both because you're not paying anything to do it, to make it.
Slave labor.
Yeah. But then they're making profit. So it is capitalism. Too.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, it's a little bit of both.
What's that saying? Like communism or socialism works great until you run out of other people's money?
I guess that's that saying.
Yeah. I don't know.
You said it.
We're just going to say.
Sure.
What is that? What is that saying? And then you said the saying. It's that one.
And you're like, that is what you just said. Okay.
I've heard that before, though.
Okay. At least someone has. So the selling this shit in town usually earned $3,000 or $4,000 a month. So Jim also regularly sent hundreds of followers into various towns around Guyana, normally Georgetown.
I wonder if anyone has any of that stuff. Probably worth a lot now.
That would be worth like a Jonestown made doll or wooden train.
Yeah.
Damn, that would be.
I'll look on eBay.
Do it, and do it from a reputable dealer to know what we're getting. So he would send people into these towns in Guyana to beg for donations, and that usually also produced a few thousand as well, because all these ventures added up to about $500,000 a month.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, which is still, though, about $100,000 short of Jonestown's operating costs. Jim constantly pressured his followers to get more donations.
How? In South America in the jungle, why is $500,000 your operating cost?
I don't know, man. That's what I was wondering. Jesus Christ. I mean,
Sounds like everything had to be bought.
pretty
Not
much.
making anything.
Yeah, they weren't producing any food. I don't know what else, but would it take $500,000 to feed 900 people in a month?
I wouldn't think so.
I don't know. I've got a family of 4 at my house, and it feels like it take like $3,000 or $4,000 to feed us every month.
Well,
Every time we turn around, we got to spend another $500 in groceries.
I'd say, but that's nowadays. But I mean, if you,
Yeah, back then a loaf of bread was 60 cents. If that.
he ought to be able to turn that bread into a lot more loaves.
Yeah.
Another thing you got to worry.
And fishes too.
Yeah.
Another thing you got to think about, anything that you're buying that's not semi-local. It's got to be shipped there.
Yeah.
And that costs a lot.
I'd be like, why don't you turn all this nasty jungle water into wine, Jim Jones? Why don't you do that? Jim constantly pressured his followers to get more donations, sell more toys, yield more fruit, do whatever they had to do to prove that the Jonestown socialist experiment could survive on its own. What do we got?
He found one on Reddit.
You're kidding.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a weird looking Mickey. That looks like it was made by cult followers.
Yeah.
Jim Jones doesn't want to mess with Disney, though.
Oh, the back says Marcy, Tom, Jonestown, the Guyana JT. Oh my God.
Wait, is it for sale or anything?
I wonder if Marceline had something to do with that. Whoa.
Did you just Google? You just Googled it?
Whoa. That's them making them. By God, yes.
Oh, wow.
Guys, I'll tell you right
Someone's
now,
lucky.
I'm going to own one of these. I'm going to own one of these by the end of this series. I don't know how. I'm going to find one.
You only got like 3 weeks left.
I'm going to try as long as it's not like, too much money. I mean, come on, I'm balling on a budget.
What'd you Google, Clint?
By the way,
I didn't do that.
we've extended invitations before on this podcast that if you're a listener and you're relatively close, or if you want to make the drive, whatever you want to do, if you want to come hang out with us in studio as we record an episode, you can do so. And our friend and listener Clint is in studio with us tonight, taking us up on that offer. So he's sitting over there watching the train wreck.
He's about to win a full-time job of Google and stuff.
Yeah.
I know.
He's a good Googler.
He's been Googling some really interesting stuff while we've been talking. So
Because I couldn't find anything.
he found some Jonestown toys, supposedly original, authentic. What'd you find yours on, Clint? Was it Amazon or Reddit? Okay. Wow, yeah. So he found a picture of them making these damn dolls in Jonestown.
They made like a knockoff Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say is Disney is one of the most aggressive protectors of their brand. Like they've sued schools before for showing like Mary Poppins or something.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. They would send the Mickey Mouse Special Forces down there to assassinate everyone.
Well, it's like
That's
the
probably
same
what
thing.
happened. That's what I'm going to say really happened.
Disney had them all executed for making Mickey.
You shouldn't have been making this. Shouldn't have been making illegal toys.
My likeness is trademarked. Huh? And he's like, just shoots them all.
They are crazy about their stuff.
Drink this punch, you bitches. We don't want to. And he's holding them at gunpoint. That's what really happened. Sorry, I don't.
7 dwarfs are there.
7 dwarfs.
I just think they got the Avengers now, so you don't want to mess with them.
No, yeah, they've got some real firepower. So yeah, this Jonestown, it's funny that they had to do all these capitalist ventures to survive as a socialist experiment. But what only Jim and a select few others knew, and what y'all already knew, because I kind of spilled the beans a while ago, he had stashed millions of dollars in various foreign bank accounts that could sustain Jonestown for decades if needed.
I think that was his money, though.
Probably.
He probably just was going to retire eventually from it all.
I don't know, man. It's so weird. I don't know why. Why?
Well, he's paranoid. Paranoid people keep way more.
That's true.
Stash things away. Just think about somebody that grew up in the Depression, like older people later. I've heard a lot of stories where they've stashed money, like they go to clean out their house after they died and they found like hundreds of dollars in a cracker box.
Yep. Not only that, but some of the worst kind of hoarders type looking yards were people that lived through the Great Depression. I knew some people like they were great guys, old farmers. But dude, if a baler broke down in 1984, they still had it.
Yeah.
Well, they never got rid of anything.
Yeah.
You still see a lot of that around here.
Yes, you do.
Sure.
Back in the States, the New West magazine article that had basically ran Jim out of the country was causing quite a stir. Many former Temple members had been interviewed in the article and recalled in detail the bizarre life of being a Temple member, the harsh punishments of those who angered Jim, and the rampant sexcapades he engaged in.
Sam called it Temple of Doom, and that's one of the greatest things that we've ever thought of on this podcast.
Yeah.
It was the Temple of Doom.
It was, man.
So many ways.
People were understandably fascinated by this strange group, which many were now referring to as a cult. What? Several San Francisco newspapers sent reporters out to search for more former temple members and get their stories as well. They also began peering into the temple's finances, which involved hundreds of thousands of dollars in hidden money and shady real estate deals. Perhaps worse than all of this, though, was the formation of a group that would soon come to be known as concerned relatives.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
I've mentioned them before. It consisted of just that, family members of temple members who were concerned about them. It also consisted of former temple members such as Grace Stoen and the group's unofficial leaders, Elmer and Deanna Myrtle, who had changed their names to Al and Jeannie Mills after defecting, hoping it would negate the various incriminating letters Jim had made them sign years earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So I want people to remember Al and Jeannie Mills. We're going to be talking about them in a few more episodes. They had joined People's Temple back in 1969 and were both high-ranking members in the temple, but had defected in 1975 after Jim had violently paddled their young daughter, Daphne, in front of the entire congregation.
Wow.
Okay? There's a lot more to their story, but we will get to that later, as I said. Anyways, the Concerned Relatives group began writing open letters about the abuses and isolation occurring in Jonestown, claiming that many followers who now wanted to leave were being held there against their will. The group began lobbying politicians to investigate the alleged cases of human rights violations committed by Jim and would end up being pivotal in the events that would soon lead to the largest cult mass suicide in history. But we're not there yet.
So he's on the right side of civil rights, but on the wrong side of human rights.
Yeah.
That's so ironic.
He was just a walking contradiction, Jim was.
It's true. We've said that about him and some other people.
So Grace Stoen was one of the most outspoken against People's Temple and vowed to get her child back no matter what. She divorced her husband Tim and filed for custody of John Victor in September of 1977, and she was awarded custody by Judge Donald King, who then ordered Jim Jones to produce the boy in court on October 6th.
Okay.
This was a devastating blow to Jim. Hundreds of children had their custody signed over to the temple by their parents, and Jim had always assumed these documents were legally binding. But based on Judge King's ruling, they apparently were not.
Yeah, because that's like, I forgot what the term is, but in legal matters, you need one case to win to go your way, and then other cases can follow suit.
Yep, exactly.
It's not precedent, but it's kind of like that, I guess.
It is something like that.
Yeah.
So, and Jim knew this.
Yeah.
So he was freaking out. So he knew that he was now not only at risk of losing John Victor, but of all the kids.
Yeah.
And of course, again and again, I'll say it, Jim could not handle losing one person, let alone many.
I wouldn't think that he cared about the kids and he was afraid to lose them. He just didn't want to lose.
Jim knew as long as he could hold the children in Jonestown, their parents would probably never leave. That was a big part of why he wanted to keep the kids there.
Yeah.
The kids were also perfect fodder for Jim's manipulation tactics. So here's the thing.
They don't know any better.
No, hell no. They were easily malleable, and then he would use them. He would always be warning the parents that, there was capitalist mobs back in the U.S., and they was going to torture the kids. He was always like, we have to protect our kids. Until one night when he was like, we got to kill all our kids.
But otherwise, he was
up until then.
protecting them.
Isn't that ironic? Like, for months, he was like, we got to protect the kids. You got to stay here. And then he was like, hey, this just in. Tonight, we're killing all the kids. Because they did that first. They killed all the kids first. I will say that.
Oh, man.
We'll get there. But, man, yeah. He said the kids all have to go first. They killed almost 300 children were methodically murdered.
So a third of
Jonestown people were kids. Almost. Yeah, there were almost 300 kids.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, he probably did like to have them because a third of your people are most
easily groomed.
Mm-hmm.
Santa Claus? I am Santa Claus.
That's what I was thinking whenever they were basically making toys, but they weren't in the North Pole. They were down in
I was
South.
thinking that too. I was thinking you were going to say they were going to give the toys to the kids or something, but no, they sell them in town.
Yeah. Another capitalist venture by this socialist organization. Of course, Jim ignored the ruling to produce John Victor in the States, assuming he was far out of the reach of the American legal system.
Yeah.
But then Grace Stone's attorney, Jeffrey Haas, flew to Georgetown to personally meet with Justice Aubrey Bishop and request the U.S. order be honored in Guyana. Bishop granted his request. Uh-oh, Jim.
That's not good.
No. From there, Haas...
I mean, it is good.
Well, yeah, it's good for humanity.
Yeah, there we go.
From there, Haas and a Guyanese court officer made the long journey to Jonestown to personally deliver the order to Jim.
Finally, a lawyer that I like.
I know, right? There's not many of
possible?
Isn't it possible?
That we can go to Jonestown and get this child.
They were met at the gate by a furious Maria Katsaris, who claimed their leader was gone and no one knew when he'd be back. Jim ain't home.
Okay.
Where the hell did he go? Into the freaking jungle? Where's he at, really? He's not there? Jim was obviously there in full panic. Jim Jones Jr. would later recall that his father had asked him to help stage an assassination attempt after this.
Okay.
Jim Jr. said, this was his words, quote, "He was telling me that the people needed to believe we were being invaded, that there needed to be an act people could rally around. He told me to hide out near his cabin and fire off some shots when he walked out. He told me he wouldn't let anyone shoot back at me. But that night, he was being guarded by Tim Jones, not related, and I don't think, and a guy named Johnny Cobb.
No relation.
When he came out, I shot. And next thing I know, Tim and Johnny are shooting their shotguns in my direction and I had to run."
Wow.
End quote. The following day, Jim called everyone out from the fields and had an emergency meeting. The settlement was soon to be surrounded by armed adversaries, he claimed, and there were more coming to confiscate not only John Victor, but all of the kids. They're coming for our kids. Okay?
That pulls at the heartstrings.
It does. Jim claimed the entire thing had been set up by the temple's newest and most high-profile adversary, Tim Stone.
Oh.
Yeah, he hated
Okay.
Tim.
Yeah.
Jim had long suspected he was about to lose his temple attorney. Tim had traveled back to the States a few times, and Jim had discovered in a confiscated letter that Tim had set up a secret bank account in Denver, Colorado.
Uh-oh.
Well, Jim's suspicions for once were correct. Tim had met with Grace in Denver and assured her he would do whatever it took to get John Victor back. He finally had he kind of came to his senses.
Yeah.
It was the ultimate betrayal.
You ever come to Jim Jones moment?
Very nice.
He
Very
did.
nice.
And he did the right thing. And Jim said it's the ultimate betrayal, right? It was time to fortify the town perimeter and prepare to fight. So he told him, we're about to have a war, he said to Jonestown.
You got to fight for your one cookie a week.
We don't want to lose that. My 2-minute shower? That's not even enough time to fit in a wank. Sorry, I had to. I had to. Hundreds of people were called to Jonestown's main structure, a large open pavilion where Jim's nightly relentless meetings took place. There they were handed shovels, machetes, guns, pitchforks, knives, forks, spoons, toothpicks, anything that could be used as a weapon.
Is that all in your notes?
No.
Oh, okay, I was going to say.
I kind of went off the...
Okay. I thought you were just typing and you were just going crazy.
Nail clippers.
Nail clippers.
Ice trays.
Pest dispensers.
Pest dispensers. If you go you can bite them with it if you do it just right. It hurts a little. One guy in the back shows up with a bag of Legos. It's like, we just scatter them out and it'll hurt when they're wearing shoes, jackass.
Okay, Kevin McAllister.
Yeah. Got a bunch of Hot Wheels.
We're not doing paint cans. It's too slow. They'll see them coming.
This guy's tying paint cans from the jungle limbs up there.
They probably had tarantulas, though.
They probably did out there, yeah. Anyway, this would later be referred to as the 6-day siege.
Okay.
A few days into the siege, September 9th, Jeffrey Haas returned with the order to collect John Victor again, right?
Yeah.
He was again met at the gate and told Jim refused to comply. Haas informed them that Justice Bishop had ruled as long as the order was posted on the site, so he brought copies of it, the court would consider it as having been successfully served to Jim Jones. So Jeffrey Haas just walks around stapling it to trees and stapling it to buildings. And
kind of a brave guy.
He was at the time, yeah. Consider it served.
That's
you
right.
just got served, he said.
Yeah, there we go.
And then he moonwalked out of Jonestown. That's where that saying came from.
I'm sure.
You've just been served.
You've been served. Mostly here and here.
Anyway, so yeah, he puts a bunch of copies up around Jonestown. He leaves. Obviously, settlers run and tear them all down immediately.
Sure.
It's like it never happened.
Yeah.
No, they're there.
Yeah.
It's too late. You can tear them down or whatever. They're probably like, more toilet paper.
Yeah, probably. Probably. We should get more summons.
The following day, Justice Bishop issued a warrant for the arrest of Jim Jones. It was ironic. For days, Jim had been lying about armed adversaries storming into Jonestown to get him, and now, through his own stupid-ass actions, it was probably going to happen.
That can't be good, though.
No. It pushes him closer to,
Yeah.
So, from what I understand, the mass suicide was very close to happening right then and there.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. In early September 77, over a year before it actually did happen, it almost happened. And I mean, it almost happened.
Yeah.
Within a razor's edge. Jim radioed Marceline, who was still back in San Francisco at the time, and he told her, and I quote, "I and everyone else in Jonestown are prepared to die."
Mm.
Marcy was well aware.
Everybody else was like, say what?
Yeah. Glad we didn't go.
Marcy was well aware of her husband's fatal contingency plan, and she flew into action to prevent it. She contacted several of the temple supporters in California, such as Angela Davis, Eldridge Cleaver, and Carlton Goodlett, and had them contact Jim to tell him Jonestown was not about to be invaded. So she contacted kind of the higher-ups. Carlton Goodlett was the doctor and the entrepreneur. She was getting all these people that she knew Jim kind of respected to get them to contact him and be like, simmer down, man, it's not about to get that bad. Well, okay, she also got a hold of Guyana's prime minister, Ptolemy Reed, who personally assured her that Guyanese forces were not about to infiltrate Jonestown and arrest Jim. So all these folks contacted Jim, pleaded, and actually got through to him.
Oh, wow.
For once. Jim called a meeting and declared victory, finally allowing everyone to lay down their arms and return to normal after the 6-day ordeal. So that in that one case, they were able to steer him away from it. But he was ready.
It was like their Cuban Missile Crisis, basically.
It was.
Yeah.
But thankfully, like I said, it almost happened a year before. The thing is, it would have been the same. Like, everyone would have died. It would have been the same no matter what time Jim declared it was going to happen. It was going to happen.
Do you think it would have been the same process?
I do, yeah.
He just had that flavor aid sitting there waiting.
He did. I don't know if he had ordered the cyanide yet. We actually talk about when he had Dr. Schacht, whoever it was, order the cyanide.
Oh.
I don't think he had the cyanide yet.
Okay.
So maybe it wasn't going to actually happen. Now that I'm thinking back on it, because we do later in the notes, we actually know the date that they ordered pounds and pounds of cyanide.
But you wonder if he would have took alternative measures.
Yeah, there were other ways, right?
If he had guns, he
did.
Shot everybody.
Yeah, there were guns. Not as many guns as
firing
you'd
squad
think,
or something,
yeah. Yeah. I don't know how serious he was.
Hey, Jim, they're going to come kill us. What's your plan? Oh, let's kill ourselves.
Damn, what a leader.
We'll do it. We decide.
Can you imagine the president getting on TV being like, Russia has, launched, or they're threatening to launch some nukes our way that will kill us all. So our plan is everyone commit suicide.
That's right. We'll show them.
We'll show Putin. You can't kill people that are already dead, Putin. Well, despite popular belief, the fatal visit in November of 1978 that led to the mass suicide of Jonestown was not the first time outsiders had been allowed inside the settlement. In fact, because, I kind of thought that too. I was like, oh, he had everyone killed and stuff because these outside people had come in, he couldn't handle it. No, outsiders were in Jonestown freaking constantly. All the time. Well, no, so it was like officials, it was like Guyanese officials come in and check things out. They even had let in American officials. Okay, so first off, it was for months by that time. Guyanese officials had regularly visited, and they were welcomed by Jim, so he viewed their visits as opportunities to display how well the project was going. So, of course, the entire thing was always a total charade. The officials were guided to specific parts of the settlement where followers would regurgitate memorized claims on how wonderful things were going.
They probably got to come on Cookie Day for sure.
He distracted them from the crappy parts. And come over this way.
He did.
No, don't look over there. Come over here.
That was exactly it. It was all set up. They were then treated to a bountiful feast that Jim claimed was the regular diet in Jonestown. Bullshit! The settlers loved these visits because it was the only time they ever got a break from that gross rice gravy mix thing. But when the outsiders showed up, he would have steak and potatoes and, all this good food.
No one thought to ask, where'd you get steak at?
Yeah.
I haven't seen a cow ever since I've been here. Well, that's where we got the steak.
That's why. Jonestown would also provide entertainment.
Okay.
They'd screen movies inside the large pavilion. They'd put on concerts featuring their many talented musicians. And there was even a Jonestown dance troupe made up of the Temple teenagers.
Okay.
Yeah, there was. The Guyanese officials always returned to Georgetown well-fed, impressed, and reassured their superiors that Jonestown was paradise on earth.
It's like Branson, Missouri.
Jim Stafford came out.
That's right.
And he was hilarious. Yakov Smirnoff came out and he was like, oh, it's so hot. Everyone has swamp ass. Isn't it weird?
I hate this country.
I'd rather go back to Russia and freeze my ass off.
This is nothing like my country.
My country's cold. This country's hot. What is the deal?
They just turned in the Seinfeld.
Seinfeld. What's the deal with all these mosquitoes? Yeah. Anyway. There were other visits too, but these Jim was not so fond of. The U.S. Embassy had been sending staffers into Jonestown as well to investigate the claims of human rights violations the concerned relatives group had been accusing them of. So there had been many of these visits.
I just wonder, did they try to give them like steak dinners? They probably tried to impress them too.
They did them too, yeah. They put on the show for everybody.
Yeah.
Again, like Ivan alluded to, during these visits, Jim instructed everyone to be on their best behavior. He kept his armed guards out of sight and forbade anyone from uttering a single negative word about Jonestown.
Yeah.
In January of 78, John Burke, who had just been appointed U.S. ambassador to Guyana, visited Jonestown twice, and afterwards, he sent the following letter to his superiors, and it goes as follows. 2 visits to the People's Temple agricultural community in Northwest Guyana, conversations alone with a number of persons living there, and inquiries of the government of Guyana who visit Jonestown frequently have convinced me that it is improbable that anyone is being held in bondage or against their will at the People's Temple community. Consul has either met with or personally observed approximately 500 to 600 of the 800 people residing there. They appear healthy, adequately fed, and satisfied with their lives. Persons with whom we have talked to in private, some of whom were allegedly held against their will, appeared spontaneous and free in their conversation and responses to our questions. In short, there is no evidence available to support the numerous allegations that have been made.
By definition, though, most cults, the people aren't there against their will.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, and plus the people that, I guess he didn't know that they were just like putting them on. I guess anyone could be fooled. I don't want to crap on this guy, but but really, I mean, it's not against your will, especially the higher ups that they're probably going to meet.
Right, yeah.
They're not there against their will.
Yeah, so yeah, Jim had that designed to where, no, they wouldn't meet anyone there against their will.
Yeah.
He handpicked who they were going to meet.
Yeah.
And told them what to say. Yeah, so of course he was like, hey, everybody seems peachy.
Yeah.
So in the letter, Burke went on to warn that these continued probing visits could be viewed as harassment and reassured those in Congress who'd been inquiring about Jonestown that he would set up quarterly visits there to perform routine consular services and urged the matter to be closed. So basically he was saying, guys, if we keep messing with these people, they could legitimately accuse us of harassment. We'll go visit quarterly, and I'll let you know if anything else happens. We leave it alone.
Announce visitations only.
Right.
Well, of course, I don't know.
Yeah.
You can't just show up whenever you want.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
So the State Department then forwarded Burke's message to several members of the Senate and the House who had been receiving complaints and inquiries from concerned relatives. The letter seemed to quell the politicians' fears, except for one. And I bet everybody can guess who. It was Democrat Congressman Leo Ryan, who served California's 11th congressional district. He did not buy the ambassador's rosy account of Jonestown and was certain that there was more to the story. At the time, Ryan was in the midst of a campaign to get reelected, but he informed former Speaker of the House, Jim Wright, that as soon as the election was over, he was going to take action and truly investigate Jonestown. And he would. And that is where we'll pick up the story next week in part 12 of our series on Jim Jones and the People's Temple.
All right, Joe, great episode, man.
Thank you, and can't wait to pick this up next week with episode number 12. So good night, everybody. We'll see you then.